Today we're going to take a look at an arithmetic sequence. We're going to look at, this is lesson 3.5 in our notes today, so we're going to take a look at how do we determine a number as a sequence. Our goals for the lesson, by the end of the lesson, is that you'll be able to look at a series of numbers and know if it's an arithmetic sequence, and you'll be able to determine the rule for an arithmetic sequence for any term. That's what n means. That stands for any term in an algebra or an arithmetic sequence. There are other types of sequences called geometric sequences, but we're going to take a look at that in another lesson. So let's take a look at this arithmetic sequence. So we start off by what is it? Well, an arithmetic sequence is a sequence in which the common difference between any two consecutive numbers is constant. Well, we looked at consecutive numbers already, and we know constant just means stays the same. The only word we've got to finally look at is know what's the common difference. Well, let's take a look. The common difference sounds very similar to what we know it's difference. So difference simply means subtraction. So the common difference, though, is the numerical difference, and we're going to call that D. We're going to define that letter as D between any two consecutive terms. So now that we've kind of got the vocabulary down, we've got the understanding of what we're looking for. We're looking for a sequence of numbers, that the number between each number is exactly the same, and that common difference D is referred to as D, and that's going to help us figure out the information. So let's take a look through this. So the first thing we have to figure out is this an arithmetic sequence? So we've got to look at between every single number. So these are in your notes. These are the first three in this section of notes. We find the common difference. So here it's 4, and it's 4. So based on the information that I have, is this an arithmetic sequence? Definitely it is. This is a sequence. Okay? Take a look at our next one. The difference between these two is -2. And it stays the same difference, so it has a common difference. So if it has a common difference, it's an arithmetic sequence. You take a look at this one. You pause the video, and we'll take a look at this and see if this is right. Now that you had a second to look at it, is this an arithmetic sequence? Well, it goes up by 5 here, by 10 here. So right now we know, because the common difference is different from each other, it's not an arithmetic sequence. Now pause the video and work on the last 3 in your notes. Now that you've done those last 3, let's take a look if it's an arithmetic sequence. So we take a look at the first one. It goes up by 2, by 2, by 3, not an arithmetic sequence. This one goes down by 3, by 3, by 3. So my common difference is -3. It is an arithmetic sequence. This one goes down by -1. So it is an arithmetic sequence. All right, let's move on to the next idea. Now that we know how to determine if something's an arithmetic sequence, and we know how to find a common difference, let's take a look at figuring out what's next. What's the next term? That's pretty easy when I only have to know maybe 3 terms past the original. But we're going to look at another way in just a few moments. How do we figure out what maybe the 30th term is, or the 15th term, or the 19th term when I've only got 4 to start with? That would take a lot of counting. So let's take a look first in this idea. So the first thing you have to do when you find the next term is find the common difference D. Find D for each of these equations. So this one is 3, is a positive 4. So if I add 4 to get to the next sequence, I add 4 here, and then another 4, and a final 4. Final 4. It's not basketball season yet. I'm getting ahead of myself. Now let's take a look at this next one. Okay? What's my common difference here? Remember, your common difference can also be negative. Right, the common difference is -3. So here, I'm going to keep going. -7, -10, and -13. You take a look at this last one and see if you can figure out the common difference and the next 3 terms. All right, so the common difference between these two, even though we're starting in negatives, it's going up. So it's +6. So 16, 22, and 28. Now that you have an idea of it, you try the next few in your notes. All right, now that you've tried those 2 out, you can check your notes online to get the answers and see how you did. Now let's take a look at this next idea. Now, what happens? The next 3 terms are pretty easy. When we looked at this right here, these next 3 terms are pretty easy. But what if I want to know, say, the 50th term in the sequence? I'd have to count 50 times. That would just take me too long. It'd be too much paper. It'd be a waste of time. So there's a formula that mathematicians have figured out that will help us figure it out, and it comes from right here. If I want to find out, so let's say we'll take a look at this one. What is the 19th term in this sequence? Okay, so the formula you see is a sub n equals d times n minus 1 plus a sub 1. Now, that seems like a lot of letters and formulas, but let's demystify what these letters stand for. Okay, so when we're talking about this first one, n stands for the term I'm trying to find for, and n stands specifically for that number. Okay, so in this case, it would be the 19th term. So it would be a of 19. Okay, so that gives me that first part. So I'll put this all the way down at the bottom so we can keep this on the screen as I work my way through it. A of 19 equals, now what's D stand for? Now we learned D earlier in a lesson. D stands for the common difference. So we got to go back to the original sequence and see what's the common difference between these two. Well, the common difference is a plus 3. So we're going to put 3 here. Now n stands for, I already know what n stands for. It stands for the number. So n stands for 19 minus 1 plus, now we got a sub 1. A sub 1 stands for the first term in the sequence. So going back again to the sequence, here's my first term. So now I've got to put 2 at the very end. So with this information, I can figure out the 19th term in the sequence. Okay? 19 minus 1 is 18. So it would be 3 times 18 plus 2. So 3 times 18 is 54. 54 plus 2. So the 19th term in the sequence is 56. Okay? And you can see how those let me work. Let's do a couple more practices together. So the first thing you need to do whenever you're working on a problem like this is to find that common difference. Find D. Okay, now that I've got, as soon as I get D, it's right here. So I'm going to look at what's the difference between those two numbers. Well, it's positive 6, so that's my D. What's my first term? Whatever the first term they give you in the terms. So my D is 7. My question will always ask me what the n is, will give me the n. So now I plug that into my information. A of 19 equals D, which is 6, times 19 minus 1 plus 7. Again, do the math. 6 times 18 plus 7. So if I multiply 6 times 18, okay, I should get, let's see, 108 plus 7. So A of 19 is this. So the 19th term, A of 19, is 115. Now we've got it. Make sure you have these notes before you move on. This time, I'd like you to identify the first 3 pieces. So pause the video and get that information from your sequence. All right, now that you guys have figured out what is D, all right, it's a positive 3. A1 is negative 11, and n is 19. So I'm going to plug this into my equation. A of 19 is equal to D, which is 3, times 19 minus 1. This time, instead of being plus a number, it's actually going to be minus 11. So now I'm going to do the math. 3 times 18 minus 11. So 3 times 18 again, we figured out earlier it was 54. 54 minus 11 leads us to 43. So we'd say the 19th term in the sequence is 43. All right, your turn. You try this whole problem, and then you can check your answer when we're done. All right, now that you've had a chance to check your work, to do your work, let's go ahead and find out the information. Well, the first thing I need is D. In this case, it's negative 5. My first term is negative 16. And again, I'm trying to find the 19th term. So now that I've got that, I'm going to plug it all into my equation. The 19th term equals negative 5 times 19 minus 1, minus 16. So we have negative 5 times 18 minus 16. Well, negative 5 times 18 is negative 90. Negative 90 minus 16 is negative 106. So the 19th term in this sequence of numbers is 106. Good job on this. There's a few more practices to try. I'm going to stop you here and let you work in your notes on the next couple problems, and then I'm going to go over them with you if you want to check your work at the end and see how you did. Now that you've checked your work on the notes and seen how you did, I'm going to go ahead and give you this one. Let's take a look at a word problem. How could I do the same thing with a word problem? It goes back to now just reading carefully on the problem. So if I visit the Grand Canyon and drop a penny off the edge of the cliff, the distance the penny will fall is 16 feet for the first second, 48 feet for the next second, and 80 feet for the third second, and so on. So the first thing I've got to pull out of this problem is what's my sequence? That's all I need to pull out. So my first sequence is 16, 48, and 80. What's the common difference between those three numbers? You're right, it's 32. The first term is 16, so I'm going to set up the equation. This time a of n, since I don't know what term yet, equals d, which is 32, times n minus 1, plus 16. So there's my equation to figure out the term of the sequence. Now I plug that in and find out, okay, what if this penny has been traveling for 6 seconds? How far has it traveled? So a of 6 is equal to 32 times 6 minus 1 plus 16. So 32 times 5 plus 16. Well, 32 times 5, do the math on your calculator or in your head, is 160. Plus 16 equals 176 feet. So after 6 seconds, our penny has fallen that far. Now that you've got a handle on these, it's your turn to finish up a few extra problems in your notes and then check the answers. When you're done with that, you can start your homework. I look forward to seeing what you guys can do.